Going to start in about a second. Apologies for a slight delay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 4th Southeastern European Regional Meeting. This is the, as the name says, 4th RIPE NCC Regional Meeting. And in today's sessions, we will discuss the complex issue of Internet governance. We will foresee this topic. We will actually try to make this panel as interactive as possible to have as many questions and interaction with the audience. We have a bit of a static stage here, so hopefully we'll be able to also have 2 mics here for your questions aside. And in the beginning, we will hear from Paul Rendek from RIPE NCC, who will set the scene and explain a little bit about the current trends in Internet governance as well as the current actions and what are the main topics of concerns for the Internet community, what they're involved with. But because there are many acronyms, please feel free to stop us, ask any questions at any point of time. And then we foresee after his presentation that will set the scene of what is currently very important in that landscape of Internet governance. We're going to have a discussion. Vladimir Radunovic here from Diplo Foundation, myself with Affiliates and Internet Society, trying to give some practical views as how the Internet governance landscape developing over the next 5 years. It is really an exercise in brainstorming and trying to tease out some difficult questions and try to see a big picture, where we're going and why is it all relevant to the operators, to the technical community, and hopefully this mic will continue to work. And with that, I would like to ask Paul to come on stage and start his presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Rendek, and I'm the Director of External Relations for the RIPE NCC. Firstly, I would like to thank our colleagues from Serbia for such a warm welcome to your country. It's about time we come here for a regional meeting. We've been waiting for this. It's nice to see this SEE meeting moving around Southeast Europe, and this is Serbia's turn, so thank you again for the warm welcome. I'm actually going to start with giving you a little bit of a, as Desiree said, a little bit of an overview on some of the issues that we're talking about when we talk about Internet governance. And I'm going to be focusing on a few little pieces because I think the word Internet governance is already something very confusing in itself. It means very different things to different people. And we're going to concentrate on maybe just a few of the bits. And then, like Desiree said, we'll go into a panel discussion that we want it to be a little bit more interactive because we want you to ask us the questions that you don't understand. This field is very complex and it's very big. So we're going to narrow in on a few pieces that we hope are interesting for you. But of course, if there's anything else that you want to bring up, then we will have those microphones open when we're finished with this presentation and we'll move along. So, defining Internet governance. This is, I think, where the whole problem starts. The words Internet governance, what do they mean to you? They mean something very different when you ask that question to a government person or when you ask that question to a techie or maybe somebody from civil society. Everybody has a different way of explaining that. So I think this is one of the fundamental issues that we have or complexities that we have inside of this whole kind of managing the Internet, this whole Internet space, is that when we use the word Internet governance, everybody has a different way of defining that. So already when we come together as different groups, we're probably hitting each other or actually doing a little bit of this, actually crossing each other over. So defining Internet governance. As far as the Internet technical community is concerned, we have been actually dealing with Internet governance for decades. Since the early 2000s, we've been engaging with all of our stakeholders. We've been inside this open, bottom-up, and inclusive process. We've had the likes of business, government, operators, what have you, all coming together. This is not really something new, the concept of of maybe this kind of working together in a multi-stakeholder area or being open and inclusive. This isn't something that's very new for RIPE. I think it is for a few other sectors there. So inside, actually, if you look at what we've defined in the Internet technical community of what our governance models are, they have always been traditionally very open and able to embrace any kind of new technologies or any kind of new players that have been coming in on that. I think we can be very proud of that. And I think we have been actually looked at as a model inside this whole kind of Internet governance arena and saying, well, how have these people been doing this? Because it seems to have worked for them for quite some time. The whole world came together to try to define this somewhere in between 2003 and 2005 at something called the World Summit on the Information Society. And that buzzword, they call that WSIS, W-S-I-S. That word splashes around. It's been running around the world for quite some time. The word is back on the plate again, and I will bring up this term. Can I see a show of hands of people that have heard of WSIS before, or multi-stakeholder, or these words? Okay, I'm looking at some of my colleagues. Please put your hands down. I know you, but for the rest of you, okay, good. It's nice to see that this concept isn't so new for everybody, which is great. So at this time, actually, we had a lot of increasing engagement from all the different stakeholder sectors in there, and they came up with something that we call the multi-stakeholder model. This jumped out of this whole process of governments coming together with civil society, coming together with business and technical community, right? So for us, I think if you look at the word multi-stakeholder, again, another very new word. It doesn't even translate very well into different languages. Multi-stakeholder means, you know, you look at it from the English term, the Arabs are still fighting over how they actually, what word they use in Arabic that defines multi-stakeholder. So already we have an issue there, just with one region of the world here. But if we look at multi-stakeholder and what everybody's been talking about of this thing of all the different bodies coming together, I think we as a technical community define this as bottom-up, open, and inclusive. And we've defined that for quite some time. So I think for us to come to that definition was kind of fairly easy. We don't use the word multi-stakeholder inside of the technical community so much. We talk about being inclusive, talk about being open, and consensus-based decision-making. Something we have been doing, like I said, for the last 25 years. So these elements have been already developed in the technical community, and they're suited to the Internet, which is borderless and obviously based on global cooperation. So if we look at RIPE NCC and Internet governance, what have we been doing there? We have been promoting engagement with all the stakeholders, decision-making in a bottom-up way. We've been providing expert input on technical issues and technical effects of government decisions, right? Of decisions that governments are making. Because now what you've had happen, I think back in the day, the technical folks seem to be the ones running the Internet. You know, you were in this beautiful bubble where nobody really looked at you. You were all, you know, in control of your own destiny. And all of a sudden these different players came into the scene, and the governments came in, and it was something that the governments actually didn't develop. This was developed by the business and technical community, this whole thing we call the Internet. I think we scared the governments. This was a gift that we've given to them. Governments usually fund these very large kind of public infrastructures. So when they see something coming at them that they're not very comfortable with, they actually have the propensity to actually over-regulate and grab it and want to jump on it. And I think that's what happened to us early in the game. I think the technical community was very surprised to see that all of a sudden there was these different players coming in and actually putting regulation and you know, making public policy on things that worked in your world quite nicely. So things have changed a little bit inside of our arena. I think it's very important for the technical community to take a look and say, right, we need to come together because we need a piece of this pie that's out there that people are trying to govern, this thing we call the Internet. So outreach, we have been talking to members in the community across the service region. We've been contributing to a whole bunch of global discussions. We are part of different Internet governance forums or any kind of discussions that are going on there. We definitely try to make sure that we're there representing the technical community. It's very important. And we coordinate this together with our industry partners, with the likes of ICANN and the Internet Society, the other regional Internet registries, the IETF, WC3, all of these folks that play in there, and different CCTLD operators. We work together, and we actually, all of us seem to manage different pieces of the pie, but we are there, and we are very visible in all of these events. And actually, one of the new things that's come out of this, because of course, like I said, there are all these new players coming in that want to manage the internet. Law enforcement. Law enforcement 5 years ago was not a very nice word inside the RIPE community, one that we really didn't embrace very nicely. We were quite afraid of those people. We have had, I mean, these days, you see law enforcement people walking around everywhere. They've changed the way they've approached their way to us. They see that they need to work with us in order to get what they need. We need to work with them as well. We all want a safe internet. It just has to happen in a way that we're all happy in how we share and how we cooperate. So that's another thing that we have been doing inside of the RIPE community and inside the RIPE NCC space for engagement. IANA stewardship transition. This is one particular area of the internet governance that I wanted to concentrate on because it is one that's on our plate currently and quite pressing. So there is this global bottom-up process to define the new multi-stakeholder stewardship of IANA. What is this going to look like? IANA currently has these three functions. It has the protocols that is done by the IETF, it has the names part, and it has the numbers part. Those are the three functions of IANA. And now, what's happening is that basically the US government holds the contract for all those IANA functions. And the US government has said, okay, we think we're willing to take a look at stepping back and removing our hold on this contract. But we want the governance of how these different areas are running inside of IANA to be run in a multi-stakeholder, bottom-up fashion by those that are actually using the resources. So they want those that use the resources of these different areas to be in control of their own destiny, so to speak. But they want to make sure that they're going to release something because I'm sure you can appreciate no government would ever let go of anything unless they were sure that they saw a model that was working and has a little bit of history. So this is what we've been busy trying to define from, if we take a look at the number side of things inside of IANA, which is obviously something that's very core to RIPE NCC and to the RIPE community. We've been very busy making sure that we are communicating what our model has looked like and the longevity that we've been working under in this consensus-based way that we operate, and showing them that this model is self-governing and it works. You can release your hold on this, America. That's what we've been really busy. This is really the whole crux of what's happening when people talk about IANA stewardship transition. What does that really mean? You know, and I also want to talk about what that means to your business, too. We will get to that in a moment. So we have this team that's been set up called CRISP, and I know these acronyms might be a bit new for you, the Consolidated RIR IANA Stewardship Proposal Team. It's a team of 15 people, 3 people from each regional internet registry that were supposed to come together and build this response that comes from the numbers community on actually saying to the U.S. government, okay, here is our model for what we want to look like self-governing forward, and we want to be the ultimate stewards. As the community, we want to be the ultimate stewards of the number resources here in IANA. So that team has come together. There are those 15, like I said, 3 from each region, and there's 1 staff member from each RIR inside that CRIS team. I'm the representative for the RIPE community on that CRIS team. We've been working very diligently for the last months, about half a year, I would say, on this work. And on the 15th of January, as we were asked to do, we submitted this proposal, our proposal for how we wanted this thing to look like. We submitted that on time. Now, the IETF also submitted theirs on time. The names people, uh-oh, we're going to jump on that in a second. They haven't done that. They've asked for an extension, and I will come to that quite shortly. So really, where are we now as far as that proposal? The community came together. They set down the principles of what they wanted to see in what this would look like going forward. And now our legal team is working on the SLA. So what would this SLA look like between the RIRs and ICANN on the operations of IANA? And here I've actually given you the website. I mean, as soon as you go to our home page, you can see the IANA stewardship transition. Boom. It's quite a big button there. You can hit it and you'll find all the information if you're interested in going into this a little bit deeper. what does this thing look like? Look at this wonderful picture here. So from the side of the numbers folks, we have the 5 regional internet registries. We've come together as something we call CRISP. The names people call themselves CWG, right? And then you've got the IETF. So these 3 different bodies of IANA have had to come together and form their own proposal. And then these 3 proposals go to something that ICANN has formed, the ICG. This group basically has been tasked to pull all these 3 different proposals together into one proposal that will then go to the NTIA, to the US government, eventually to the State Department, and they will make their decision of whether they will release the contract on IANA. So as you can imagine, there's a timeline that's come in, and June was supposed to be the timeline where everything went to the US government. But the names people have asked for a 6-month extension. Now that's a little worrying, because 6 months extension for one body means that this whole table shifts by 6 months. Those ICG people, there are 30 of them on this crew that will pull everything together, they're going to need their time to put this proposal together to get to the US government as well. Time's not on our side, and I'll tell you why. And we will talk about that, I think, as a panel on what this means. If we don't actually have this proposal over to the US government somewhere, I would say, in September-ish, August, September-ish, we're going to have a little bit of a problem, because in November, the US starts to go into their elections, right? They go into a big election period. And when they go into an election period, they shut all of their decision-making down. They do not take proposals like this and bring them into the mix. It all gets thrown out. If we miss this opportunity, in my opinion, I think we've missed the boat, and we probably will not ever see this opened again. So there's a lot of pressure, and I think the names people need to feel that, for any of you that are names people in this audience. I think we work very nicely with them. I can see a lot of positive outputs coming through, and I'm confident that they will deliver in June as they have to. But if they don't, I think you're going to see some discussions coming through on some of the lists on what has to happen and what we can do, because time is ticking for us. So I talked about some of these current developments and what we're doing. The SLA is obviously important. We're monitoring the names people and actually putting a bit of pressure on them to make sure that they're not trying to solve all the issues in the names space on anything to do with internet governance from their area, and to concentrate on making sure that they just deliver their proposal. And naturally, of course, we've been engaging our community, and we are obviously reinforcing the bottom-up process here. So beyond that, that was the IANA thing, and we can take a whole bunch of questions on that, because that is something that's very, very pressing. So but beyond IANA, let's look at some of the other things that are going on. Internet Governance Forum. There's an Internet Governance Forum happening in November in Brazil. It's the 10th event. 10th event probably doesn't sound very important, but it is. Because actually, what's happening, this is a very key moment for the future of the IGF, because there were 10 events that were brought through from the UN that they were agreed to have this kind of multi-stakeholder internet governance forum where everybody kind of comes together and all the different sectors get to talk about, how they would like to see, internet governance working, and we cooperate to actually get the, on how internet administration will work. And there's a spirit of actually providing information so that governments make good public policy. I mean, this is really what happens inside of that IGF space. It was a wonderful platform because it gave us all an opportunity equally in the room to kind of meet each other and say, oh God, look at all those government people, look at all those business people. I mean, we're technical people here. We had to all come together there. It was actually quite useful. I think there's some changes that have to come there, but there are some big decisions happening in 2015. In December, the UN General Assembly is going to come together, and they're going to decide whether or not this IGF will move forward, and the whole multi-stakeholder model of how we're coming together and forming all of the ways that we're governing the internet is in question. It's in the balance, because if they decide not to open this up again, or if they don't renew the IGF mandate somewhere, the whole multi-stakeholder thing kind of goes out the window, because the UN will be saying, all right, we're going to have to, this didn't work. This is the way I think governments will look at it. They'll say, that clearly didn't work. We need to move on to something else. And trust me, they're going to want to move to something else very top-down, which is something we, I think, in this room don't really agree with, right? So WSIS plus 10, they call this. This is the acronym they call WSIS plus 10 because it's 10 years basically since the whole WSIS program of this multi-stakeholder drive. It's been 10 years that we've been running around doing this. This is where we are. That's why they're calling it that. So there's a lot of other bits happening that don't even relate to ICANN or IANA out there in that space that really will affect the way the technical community operates. So another thing I wanted to touch on, this is another topic inside of the governance area. For this whole WSIS process, we've actually been approached by quite a few governments here in Europe and also around the space of the RIPE NCC service region. And they've said to us, you know what, RIPE NCC, we do not want to concentrate on critical internet resources because every time we go into these government forums, these UN meetings, they want to concentrate on who's running the IP addresses, where are the names being controlled for. It's always on the critical internet resources. Those are not really the issues that they need to be talking about. There are other things I think that the governments need to be focusing on. I mean, we in the technical community, we've got these things sorted. I think a lot of the governments see that. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to concentrate on something they call ICT development. This is a big issue. What that means is, and you know, a lot of the governments say, yes, ICANN, IANA, IATF, we understand what your contributions are to internet development. They're very clear to us, but we're not really quite clear what the operators, the mobile operators, the ISPs, we're not really quite sure what their contributions are to development. And we want those defined because I think actually it will provide a good space to go into the meetings of the WSIS plus 10 and show, wait a minute, I mean, this is not being run by governments. Let's take a look at really how this all happens. The development in ICT is funded maybe this much by government, but mainly probably funded by all the different other players that are there. What are those things that we can define and show that work inside of ICT development? RIPE NCC is actually going to be working, and you know, we have many technical community organizations that have their own initiatives even further than what the RIPE NCC is doing. They have different mentoring programs or funding or training or any kind of capacity building that you see coming from the different operators. So the RIPE NCC wants to hear about this project because we'd actually want to get this and showcase this. I think that we're probably an organization that this can be funneled into, where we can channel the different parts from different countries and different operators, where we can clearly show where ICT development happens. So we will be working on this together with governments in Europe and with our membership base. And if you have anything that you'd like to add to the RIPE NCC, I have given you this email called good of the internet at ripe.net. And if you've got something there that you'd like to drop, we'd certainly like you to be part of that program. Right? And so lastly, I'm sure you're all sitting in your seats going, Paul, how does this relate to me at all? You know, which is a very good question. How does this affect me, all of this? Do I even care about this, you know, as an operator? Really? Is this going to affect your business, these things that are going on? Probably not your bottom line of revenue. And that's probably what most of you are concerned about. But the fate of your control, and I don't even have a better word for this, control of your own destiny as a community kind of does hang in the balance. And the way that you like to operate in this bottom-up, consensus-driven model that seems to have taken us from A till today does hang a little bit in the balance. So I think when we look at this, you know, we need to understand, how do we influence the debate? You know, when somebody asks me what I do for my job these days at RIPE NCC, I actually tell them probably about 95% of my job is actually to get out there and make sure that I can carve the biggest piece of that multi-layered cake that's out there for the technical community. That's my job, because we need to have a say there. And the thing is that good governance actually starts at home. It doesn't start on the global scene. I think you have to have your stuff together at home before you go running into the global area. And this is something that I want to bring into this debate. We need the technical community and the RIPE NCCs to help us locally. We can handle those global debates, you know, together. We know collectively what everyone's thinking, but I don't have the steps to the I mean, I do know some of the people in the Serbian regulator body and your Ministry of Telecommunications, but I don't have a day-to-day step with them. The technical community should, because when you actually work with them in a cooperative manner, you would be very surprised where you will come out with. So we call upon our members locally to get in there and actually talk to their regulators, come together and cooperate with them, because this good governance definitely starts at home. not on the global scene. And we need to work together on this. The last thing I wanted to bring up, which is not related to internet governance, is please join us. We have a RIPE meeting coming up in May in Amsterdam. Wonderful, from the 11th to the 15th of May. We'd love to see you all there. It's great to see the numbers of folks we get in the SEE meetings. And we understand that things are important for you regionally, which is good. We can see that from the different pockets of the RIPE service region. But those of you that can join us at the RIPE meeting in Amsterdam, it would be lovely to have you, of course. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for any questions.
So there are questions I can see, and at the back, Mikhail.
Hello, do you hear me? Martin Semrat, NCC. Hi, Paul.
Hi there.
I can confirm everything you said, because from our experience from the Czech Republic, it is really very important to be in touch with regulatory and with government too, because our technicians are able to prepare some advices to our government, and we are able to communicate with them, because without us, government prepare some special laws which is not acceptable by technical community, and it is really very important to be in touch with these guys.
Okay. And is that in place in the Czech Republic? Do you have something like that in place?
Yeah, NISDA sees it, because we have 100 organizations from the Czech Republic, and we act as the one organization to the government.
Okay.
In our platform, we communicate with content providers, ISPs, and we define advices to our government.
Perfect. So people have an opportunity to have a say there and understand even what the governments are thinking. Is that what you're saying? Like you've got that connection?
We make a bridge between technical community and government.
Fantastic. Okay. And is it working? Is it useful?
Yeah, is it useful?
I'm wondering how it works in other parts. I don't know, how does it work here in Serbia? Can anybody answer that for me? Thank you very much, Bart, and that's good that you've brought that forward. It's nice to see that the Czechs have got, I'm sure the Slovaks are doing it too, but it's nice to see the Czechs out there. Fantastic.
Hi, my name is Mita. I'm from Slovenia, from the operator. So we see that there is also the gap between technical people and the government people, because we have problems communicating with the government, because we are not involved in this communication as a technical people, as operators. So we see the possibility how to get something of that with we recently established the CNOC, and probably the CNOC will be the body who will act as a body, technical body, who will represent the technical community to our government. So we see the idea, and we see that would be probably the best channel to communicate with the technical, to bridge the gap between the technical and the government people.
Okay, and that's in Slovenia. You're talking about Slovenia. You know what? That's a very great point, because I'll tell you something. From my experience, you have different kind of bodies and how they deal with governments. I'm very happy to say the RIPE NCC has taken quite a neutral position in there. We're not trying to force them into any public policy. We're way too busy running the internet. Public policy is for governments, but I think we can help them make better public policy by having good discussions. We've always made ourselves available as a group of technical expertise that they could come to and count on in a neutral way, and it's working. I can see that Martin from the Czech Republic has told us that's the way they're doing it. Very, very smart. I think if you can build that bridge there and have some kind of groups of people neutrally that the government feels they can call on without any kind of pressure or lobbying, really lobbying together the different things for technical issues, you've got something positive there. That's really great.
A question at the back.
Paul, Dmitry Burkov, Russia. Paul, I don't want to ask you about internet governance, because for me it's absolutely clear it's process forever.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm very appreciated your work on CRISP team, but
yes.
I have some concerns. Really, did you propose as CRISP team and as other coordination working groups, real solution, because current proposals simply miss some key issues which were criticized as legislation for IANA functions, so on. And now it still looks like inside United States improvements, nothing more. And second point, of course, it's out of time frame now.
Yes. Yes. No, you're right, Dmitry.
And first of all, because really, why we should care about internal U.S. process,
right,
and politics.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. One of the pieces I think in our proposal that stands out that isn't very comfortable for probably ICANN or even the U.S. government, which feeds to the question you're asking me, is the community's right to choose the IANA operator. Currently, that's ICANN. And really, for stability reasons, we don't want to rock the boat. Everything's operating just fine. You people need to be out there doing the business you need to be doing. This back-end stuff, it should be taken care of. We probably don't want to see so many changes there. Why? It's all functioning okay. But Dimitri's got a good point. Right now, it's all sitting inside the U.S. government, and it probably looks like we're just moving things around a little bit, but everything stays there. One of the pieces inside of our SLA, inside of our principles that have come out of the technical community, was that they wanted the option to be able to choose the IANA operator. Now that is something that's not very comfortable for them, but something that we're trying to stay true to in the principles. So I can agree with your point, but I'm hoping that having that one piece in there gives us a little bit of control over our destiny of who the operator actually is.
And with that, I think I'd like to thank Paul with a hand of applause.
Thank you.